Hello and welcome to Transmission. Tonight I am joined by Fury. Welcome and thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
So we were having a bit of a discussion earlier and you were talking about the fact that you identify as gender non-binary.
Yep.
Can you give us a bit of an explanation of what that is for those that wouldn't know?
Yeah, well, for me it's always been a kind of a factor in my life. The first time that I really experienced feeling neither like a guy or a girl, I was really young. I was at a ski lodge actually, and I looked in the mirror and I couldn't tell if I was a boy or a girl, and that really freaked me out. And then I sort of got really calm and was like, no, it's fine, that's internal, nobody else can see it. And I walked out the door and the first thing a kid asked me was, are you a boy or a girl? And I remember feeling really found out. And I sort of said, girl. And after that, I just sort of made every effort to be really sort of feminine and, grow my hair long and just adhere to all these norms because I didn't want that feeling of being found out again. So it started, like, for me, it's always been around, whether or not I've sort of listened to it or sort of adhered to how I felt comfortable was a different matter. Yeah.
So it's sort of that sense of being neither sort of a guy or a girl.
Yeah, totally. Or just like not really knowing where I fit, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that, like, for me, for how I understand it, people who identify queer gendered, they like identify as that space in between, and I just identify non-binary because I don't know where I go. Yeah.
And so, like you said, so you were sort of hyper feminine for a while and did all that sort of stuff.
Ooh, yeah.
So when did you stop doing that and?
Well, it's interesting, because I sort of just like played the part of being a really hyper feminine, cis, straightish girl. Like I always identified as like kind of pansexual. But when I came to Melbourne and I broke up with my partner at the time, I just went through this, like, I call it my restructuring of self.
Yep.
That's a very polite way of putting it. I was a mess for a very long time.
Yeah.
And and then I just realized that I needed to focus more on doing stuff that made me happy, and part of that was like seeing not only cis guys and started seeing cis women as well. And I met some amazing queers, and my best friend Precious actually was the one who really like challenged me.
Yeah.
They were so patient because I said and did like a lot of really gender essentialist stuff. And so they sort of like walked me through it.
Yep.
Maybe that's not quite right. Have you thought about this? And that's when I sort of realized, like, oh my God, there are other options. Like, I don't have to be one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, with that, so, I mean, most commonly people would use pronouns sort of like he or she. So what pronouns do you like to use?
I've settled with they at the moment. It's all a little bit up in the air. I don't know. But that's okay. They's comfortable at the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's what I use. Yeah.
What's your experience been in sort of talking to people, or sort of, I suppose, have you felt the need to sort of come out?
It's funny you should say that, actually, because when I started I work for the Museum of Victoria, and when I started working there, I had been identifying as queer a little bit beforehand, but I just wanted to start a job being queer, and I didn't want to have to explain it down the track. And that's a really hard decision to make because you don't know anyone, you don't know the environment, you don't know what you're dealing with. It's like this massive unknown quantity. But I thought it would be much easier than going, down the track and sort of like coming out once I sort of gauged the scene. So that was like a really interesting process. And like I work with like a lot of blokey blokes and tradie guys. And so some of them didn't get it, some of them still don't, but they've all been really supportive. And like a lot of them have really been trying with the pronouns and some of them are getting it and all that sort of stuff. So it's really, really good.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's good. It was a little bit terrifying to start with.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was worth it. And there was this amazing moment where one of the guys that I work with, he said to me recently, he's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, I was on a plane trip from Adelaide to Melbourne. And this person sat down next to me and said, and I sat down and saw that they had a whole lot of paperwork, and I said, you know, what's up with the paperwork? And they said, oh, it's okay, not many people know about this, but you know, I'm going to Melbourne, I'm genderqueer. I said, oh yeah, cool, I work with someone. And so they had this massive conversation about being genderqueer and like working at the museum and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he did not get what it meant to them and to me.
Yeah.
But apparently they just went like, I feel so much like I'm making the right choice now, because they were going to Melbourne to get consults about transitioning.
Oh, wow.
And then he told me, and I was like tearing up, and he was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's just this amazing feeling knowing that being out and being just like yourself can influence, you know, other people in the community vicariously through circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That sort of just kind of paying it forward almost, like just by being yourself.
Yeah, like it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, you also mentioned that you do some spoken word poetry.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing that for?
Look, I've been writing poetry since day dot. It's not always been good. But the spoken word stuff has been about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. I think this month it's 2 years since my first spoken poetry gig. But yeah, I've been doing it seriously sort of for the past year or so. Yeah.
And so what sort of stuff do you like to write about? Do you talk about sort of your identity within your poetry, or is it other stuff?
I have basically been doing that more since I've been comfortable with, I guess, talking about it. So yes, it's been coming out in some poems. Mm-hmm. A lot of what I write about is like relationships and people and stuff. So there are a few poems about like lovers and partners, and several poems about my mum and my relationship with my mum. Mm-hmm. But there is one which was my friend. I sent it to them, and they said, "Oh, I hate it because it's so good." And it just talks about being like really uncomfortable and someone sort of being like physically awkward and gendering you awkwardly and telling you what your body is. Yeah. Yeah. So
is that sort of like a compliment that
I think because it means like the poem hit the mark, right? It was really relatable, and they were like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I hate that. Yeah. And yes, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So it was definitely a compliment.
And do you think that it's been a bit easier in terms of since you've been sort of more out and a bit more comfortable, has it been easier to sort of do that in terms of when you're writing poems and things like that, to sort of be a bit more true to how you're feeling? Yeah,
I think that, I mean, yes and no. It's almost like when I came out, it's difficult and it can be really raw sometimes, especially when I write like about, you know, my relationship with my mom or anything like that. So it's almost like the poems become, the more personal they get, the more difficult it is to write them, because you want to write it well and you want to write it fairly. Yeah. But you also want to like touch on the like how you feel and like really draw on your vulnerabilities, basically. Yeah. It's kind of like just, you know, exposing yourself to on the stage, and it's can be really, really difficult. Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, I think we could talk about this forever, but thank you for just giving us a little bit of a insight into you and a little bit about sort of what your gender identity is.
Yeah, cool.
Being quite cool. So a big thank you to Fury for joining us. You've been watching Transmission.
Welcome back to Transmission. Is it time we had a trans superhero? Hell yeah.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? What would their name be and what is their superpower?
There's got to be flight involved. I think we need capes. Their name, Trans Universe. And why not? Hey, let's have a superhero.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? And if so, what's their name and what's their superpower?
Well, I like to dress up as Wonder Woman a lot. So I'm trying to, perhaps Wonder Woman could be trans. Maybe we just haven't got that backstory yet.
She probably is, because I think I'd like to dress as Wonder Woman as well.
That's really good. So what would be their name? Maybe T-Buster. And maybe they would just like be able to have a big inflatable fist and punch down walls. I don't know, I'm making it up as I go.
I reckon a gender swapping gun, so you could just shoot people and bam, they're a different gender all of a sudden. That would be really awesome.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? And if so, what's their name and superpower?
Oh, gosh. I really have no idea. It would be great, but I have no idea what their superpower would be, aside from being amazing. Yeah.
Their superpower would be to... I'm going to use one of my other answers. Their superpower would be to educate people. That would be an amazing superpower, to just help everybody understand what it's like to be a transgender person. I don't think there is a particular need for there to be a transgender superhero, because I don't think that being transgender should be a defining characteristic of somebody.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? What's their name and what's their superpower?
Marley and telekinesis.
I don't know. It's probably just be like Superman or something, or Superboy, or I don't know, Super Dude, and their power would be being able to convince, to be able to remove all inequality, so that it doesn't matter if you're trans, male, female, whatever, that no one actually cares, like there's no discrimination. Yeah, everyone just sees you how you are. Yep.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? And if so, what would be their name and what is their superpower?
Yes, it's an interesting question. When I transitioned, which was about 13 years ago, the company I worked for had operations in New Zealand and in Australia. And I know my work colleagues in New Zealand could identify or knew about Georgina Beyer, who was a New Zealand Member of Parliament, a trans person, and had added real value to the New Zealand Parliament. And my New Zealand colleagues saw Georgina as a role model, saw her as someone who had added a lot of value to the community, to the wider community. And therefore, a lot of my friends there were able to identify with my change a little bit more because of having a role model. Whereas in Australia, we've not had somebody at that high level. We've had a number of people who have provided leadership in the community, but I don't think we've had a superhero. And there are a lot of us who are contributing to the trans movement. And I guess from my point of view, one of my heroes is Sally Goldner. And I think that Sally has done more than most over a longer period for the trans community. So I think Sally's as close as we've got to a super trans person at the moment.
Is it time we had a trans superhero?
Totally. We need one.
What's their name and what would their superpower be?
God. That's too hard to think on the spot. No, I don't know. I can't answer that one. But now you're going to have me thinking, though. I'll put it on Facebook.
I think we already did, don't we? Like there's that little cartoon with the transgender girl. Well, I don't know the name of it.
I don't know the name either.
I know, but yeah, that's pretty awesome that, our Western society is moving quick enough. That shouldn't be too long before, we are superheroes anyway, so.
We should make it a contest, to figure out what the superhero name is.
Yeah, like a name that...
Yeah,
trans.
And the contest, they win something, and it could be, when they, when they have like a bear in sports and something or other, and what's it called?
Mascot.
Yes. I don't mind hitting you. That would be really cool. What a great contest. We could figure out a prize for it.
Yeah, well, what would they win?
Well, I haven't got that far. We haven't got to the superhero shit yet. Jesus.
Oh, wow. They would go around like some kind of gender crusader, and then like whenever there's a gender box, they'd be like stomp it out and then get rid of all the binaries and just gender bend completely. And everyone would be like, oh my God, thank you for saving me. I don't have to tick like male or female here.
Oh, a trans superhero. Yes, definitely. And gosh, I've been trying to sit down and at least do the words for a comic strip for about 6 years. Things keep getting busy. I think we could. I just I can't think of a name off the top of my head, short of Supertran or something, is the obvious one. If Supertran was a trans woman, was it able to leap in tall stilettos or something like that? More powerful than Michael Kirby or whatever, but serious. Can't think of an exact sort of first name type of name, to be honest.
Trans Fantastic would be able to breed acceptance in the general populace. Yes.
Is it time we had a trans superhero? And what would be their name and what would be their superpower?
Isn't there a trans cartoon character at the moment? Cheese Owl? It's a little cartoon dude and he puts his magic ring on and turns into a superwoman and flies around and saves the day. She's Owl. So she's pretty cool. Oh gosh. It took me 8 months to come up with Lennox Cakes Diamonds. I don't know if I could come up with a name on the spot for a superhero. Wonder Person.
We deal with the most important questions on this show. We'll be back after a short break.
Welcome back to Transmission on Bent TV. I'm Sammy Cameron and today we're talking about hormones. Joining me today are Kurt, Nate and Isabelle. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi Sammy.
Would someone like to summarise the hormones given to people that are transitioning from female to male?
Well, female to male would be sort of Nate and I here. We like testosterone, and it's given to us by a doctor, and I think it's synthetic. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's not. So it's made especially for us, and also biological males who have a low testosterone naturally, sometimes born without testicles or something.
Do you take any estrogen blockers or anything like that?
I don't personally.
No. So it's basically taking testosterone.
Yep, yeah. And that's all it is, testosterone, and it's a miracle hormone because it can do so much.
We'll talk about that. What about the hormones that are given to people who are transitioning from male to female?
Well, I guess that would be me. I'm taking estrogen, which is a synthetic female hormone, and I think originally it was isolated out of the urine of pregnant horses, Premarin, pregnant mare's urine. So I'm taking that, and then I'm also taking a testosterone blocker, anti-androgen called not estradiol, Progenova. They have a whole bunch of medical uses, as do so many hormones. Nowhere on the packet does it say anything about trans experience, but yes, I think was used for quite a while as a treatment for, I'm trying to think, for menopausal bone loss in cisgendered women.
So it's basically estrogen
Yes.
and testosterone blockers. Okay, so why take hormones? What are some of the intended benefits of these drugs? I thought I might go through a list, and if we can quickly say what the effect is on each of these particular things. So let's start with hair. Nate, do you want to go first?
So ideally there'd be like facial hair, which is better demonstrated by Kurt as opposed to me. Also in terms of testosterone, so hair loss and also just body hair starts sprouting.
So we can see that you managed to get some facial hair there.
Yes, so I'm about 2 years on testosterone, so it's finally coming out. It took a little while, but I can wear it with pride now. I neatened it up last night for you all, so just learning how to shave.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And what about you, Isabelle?
Well, it doesn't reduce the hair you've already got growing, so I've had to do a bunch of IPL laser hair removal. I didn't have a lot of hair to begin with, a little bit on my, chin.
What about your body hair or your hair on your head? Does it have any effect on that?
Not that I'm aware of, no,
Okay.
not that I've experienced.
Okay, so in my case, there are some places that it doesn't reduce, but certainly my body hair has reduced massively, and my hair on my head has grows extremely quickly, and it's much thicker than it used to be.
I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah. So what about voice? Does it have any effect on your voice?
Absolutely, yeah.
Deep
voices.
voices.
What about? What doesn't help for us at all, does it? No, we have to actually develop. I had to learn how to speak with my voice. So, what about sweat and oil and odour?
Definitely different.
I can, yeah.
Testosterone makes you sweat and smell a lot more than before.
Yeah, much smellier.
And what about you?
I smell like daisies.
Me too. And of course, taste and smell. So my smell is so much more enhanced. So I know we're on television, but yeah, you guys do have more of an odour about you than Isabelle does.
Oh, sorry, Sammy. I should have showered this morning.
My sense of smell has enhanced massively. As yours?
Well, it's kind of funny. I transitioned when I was 20, so it's been 12 years at this point. And I really only just finished one puberty before I went into a second one. So maybe these distinctions I'm not quite so conscious of. I haven't noticed anything personally.
What about muscle development or loss? Guys find it easy to put muscles on?
So easy.
Yeah, don't have to do anything. You can just sit back and suddenly it's like pop, pop.
Yep.
What about for you?
I think that I guess my fat's redistributed and my skin's a lot softer. But while I feel like I'm saying this doesn't happen, I haven't really noticed huge amounts of muscle loss. I've still got quite a toned figure.
So I think that's one of the interesting things, is that it somewhat depends maybe on the age that you transition and what characteristics you've already developed in the stage of life and those kinds of things. What about the effects on our genitals?
Yeah, well, Nate and I could tell you that there is a lot of clitoris growth down there. So it sort of turns into, I'd like to call it a little trans willy, and yeah, it starts looking like a biological guy's penis. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't want to answer that question either.
No, I don't mind.
20 seconds or less.
20 seconds or less. I think for a lot of women, there's a little bit of shrinkage. It's harder to get erections. You can still orgasm without having an erection. But this, again, I think it does vary a lot based on individual physiology. So,
what about the effects on our brains? How can it change the way we feel about things, and how can it change the way we interact and see the world?
I think transgender people are very compassionate because of what they've had to go through, and they've had to be resilient and also more aware of other people. It makes you a lot more aware of other people, and that other people are having their own lives and they've got their own problems around them, just like I'm trans and I've got my own problems with being trans and things like that. So I think it makes us nicer people.
That's good.
Well, I think there are all the sort of social factors, the experience of just transitioning and kind of how people treat you differently. As far as the sort of effect on your brain, I know for a lot of trans people, you go through an initial period when you're first starting on those hormones, everything's running wild. It can be a very emotional time. Trans guys can get quite aggressive sometimes. Trans women can get very emotional.
Bit teary, yeah, I think emotional is a good word, though.
Yeah, and it does settle down. I don't think it's necessarily like you're permanently kind of stuck in this place of rage.
But I think for me, it's actually made me more emotionally rich. And
I would say so.
And I think about things in all kinds of more complex ways than I used to.
See, whereas for Nate and I, well, I'm not sure for Nate, but I find it difficult to cry nowadays because a lot of my emotions have been taken away. And I feel like I don't really feel them anymore, but that's what I like. And testosterone has really settled me down and actually calmed me down from what I was before.
I can cry at the drop of a hat and I love it. It's great. Any risks?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean...
There's a study I just saw. It came out just recently. 1,800 people were surveyed, and it looks like the risks are pretty much non-existent. So that's really great news.
There are some sort of rumoured ones, right?
But this study has actually demonstrated a whole lot of things that have actually shown that it's actually a lot safer than we may have expected, which is terrific. Look, I'd like to thank Kurt, Nate and Isabelle for joining us today. I'm Sammy Cameron on Transmission for Bank TV, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.